Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, whatever that means to you, whether it was fun, relaxing, whatever you needed. I hope you got this weekend. I wanted to make an episode today about a very common conversation or a very common question that is asked in the relationship community, which is, am I being too needy or are my needs not being met? How do I tell the difference? How do I know if I'm being needy or I'm in a relationship where my needs are not being met? And this definitely happens more with the anxiously attached community. With that being said, though, it's not that it doesn't happen with people with secure attachment or avoidant attachment. But what I will say is that I think that there is a large misconception around what these things actually mean. So I wanted to make an episode today based off of that question of, am I being needy or are my needs not being met, as well as what that actually means and what you should be looking for in order to decipher that answer. The first place I want to start is there's needs, right? And I think a lot of us just think there's one definition to that word of I have needs and they're not being met in my relationship. And I want to validate that it's that's probably true. You are probably correct, right? If you're feeling needy and you're asking this question, we can actually confidently confirm that your needs are not being met, period. Within the confines of this relationship, sure, we can also add that on for argument's sake. However, what needs to be discussed is what is fair to expect from your relationship, meaning what needs are fair to expect to be met in a relationship. And what I was saying before is that I think when people hear the word needs, they really only assume one definition to that. But there's needs and then there's attachment needs, right? And attachment needs occur within relationship. And those are the needs that I think people have a hard time deciphering what that actually means. And your attachment needs really are just like specific emotional requirements that you have. It's things that you need in the relationship to feel validated, to feel secure, to feel safe, to feel connected. Those are your attachment needs. They're your emotional desires, right? You need these things in the relationship in order to feel connected, feel secure, and feel loved. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Is that some of you, again, especially in the anxiously attached community, might say, I need all of this to feel safe and secure. And as we know, a lot of the things with people that are a little bit more anxious in relationships, and we can even say avoidant as well, honestly, we can really say with any form of insecure attachment that sometimes with the things that you're expecting from your partner as needs aren't fair, as well as it's something that actually needs to come from you, right? So somebody who's anxiously attached might say, for instance, that one of their needs are constant reassurance. If I want to feel safe in this relationship and I want to feel secure, I need constant compliments, I need constant reassurance, I need constant communication, or whatever it is. And again, I want to validate that you're not wrong. And we're going to come back to this that yes, you probably do need that to feel safe in a relationship, quote unquote. And even if we want to go into the other side of the spectrum of somebody who's avoidant, they might say, in this relationship, I need constant peace. We cannot argue, we cannot get into conflict. I cannot deal with your neediness or your emotional demands. And yes, we can say on the surface, that's correct. That is a need of that person's technically to feel safe. However, what I'm coming back around to is a lot of these things that we claim to be needs that we have within the relationship are actually wounds within ourselves that we need to fix. They're unhealed wounds, they're untended to wounds. And because they're unhealed and because they haven't been tended to, they're bleeding out in the relationship. And it is logical that you're like, okay, this is what I need from you. And if I don't have this from you, I'm not going to feel safe. I'm not going to feel appreciated. I'm not going to feel loved. I'm not going to feel connected. So I need that. And if you can't give me that, then I'm not sure I can be in this relationship. But the truth of the matter is, this is where healing from insecure attachment in relationships comes in. And to stay on task with the conversation we have, It's really getting, I want to say, fair and realistic about your attachment needs and what those actually are. So, going back to the anxiously attached example that I used before of I need constant reassurance, I need constant connection, I need constant compliments, I need you to never be mad at me. I need us to resolve conflict as soon as it happens. We need to have these deep conversations. You need to answer everything that I ask you. I need you to be transparent with certain things. Like, not entirely unfair to a certain extent, right? But those things that I just named all clearly point to emotional wounding within that person, right? To require those things from another person, those are not basic attachment needs. Those are untended to wounds. And I'm going to be honest, I could go into this podcast right now and explain to you why those things are not fair, why those things are not considered attachment needs. And I will get into it a little bit, but honestly, the reason why I'm not going to go that far into it is because I think a lot of you actually really do know deep down what's fair and what's not. You do. You really do. And for argument's sake, in case some of you don't actually know or don't feel that, I can get into that a little bit. But I do think many of my followers, many of my listeners, many of my clients, I usually don't have to walk them to water. I don't really have to shine the light on certain things. They know, and I'll shine it just to shine it for them to let them know that I see it. But they know, and I'm going to guess that you probably know too, where your needs are being unfair, right? So, some of this conversation where I really want to go is what do you do about that? Because, like I said earlier on in this podcast, is that you are correct that your needs are not being met. Like, you're not crazy. You are correct that you're needing so much right now and you're not getting it, right? And you're looking to your partner to fulfill it. And now you're not sure if this is a good relationship for you because maybe I am being needy, but my needs aren't being met. And maybe I just need to be with somebody who can handle my neediness. And sure, like maybe that's true. Like you can always try to find somebody who will tend to all these wounds for you so that you don't have to. But I can guarantee that's not a life you want to live. And that's probably not a partnership you want because, again, if I'm being real with you, somebody that is going to tend to all of your wounds seamlessly without boundaries, without their own self-respect is probably not going to be a healthy relationship. Even as it comes out of my mouth, it sounds like something that would be an extremely codependent relationship. You're going to be with somebody who doesn't have their own boundaries, who's not really in tune with their own needs, right? They're just in tune to yours because if you're constantly tending to somebody else's emotional wounds to make them feel safe, it doesn't sound like there's much space or even knowledge of your own needs or boundaries within that relationship. So we're not going to even entertain that possibility right now because that's not really my philosophy. And if you're someone who follows me and you're someone who likes my content, it's not yours either. And it's not a relationship that you want. And I know that my listeners, my followers, my clients are people that are extremely self aware and maybe a little too self aware. And they want to change the things that they're noticing within their relationship. So, how do we change this? I feel needy. My neediness is real, but I'm having a hard time separating what is me and my work and what is actually the relationship. So let's start with the first possibility that always exists. It's always a possibility that your relationship isn't meeting your emotional needs. It's not meeting your basic attachment needs, and it is causing feelings of anxiety. I need to also make clear that that is not necessarily anxious attachment, by the way. If you are in a relationship where you do not feel seen, you do not feel safe, you don't feel secure, you don't feel trusting, things are inconsistent, you don't feel respected, you don't feel any of those things, and you're starting to feel anxious and you're starting to feel a little unsure, that's not anxious attachment. That's your nervous system working pretty damn well, letting you know that this probably isn't a good place for us. Now, there's also always the possibilities that aren't necessarily disrespectful or toxic or abusive, but it's just somebody that we're not emotionally compatible with, right? We need certain things within the relationship to feel understood, to feel safe, to feel all those things, as I mentioned before. But that person is not maybe on the same wavelength as us. They don't have a similar emotional bandwidth. maybe they're not emotionally intelligent. Maybe they are, but they just don't have the same communication style as you as far as communicating love goes, as far as showing love goes. And I do want to state that's not always a reason to end a relationship. If you're speaking different languages, if you show love in different ways, it can be tricky because it can feel like you're constantly passing each other or missing each other. It can feel very exhausting for both people because it can feel like one person's giving a lot, the other person feels like they're giving a lot, but each other is not noticing the efforts because they don't speak the same love languages. Not always a reason to end things, but it's definitely a glaring reason to work on things because that won't work, right? You can't constantly speak two different languages in a relationship. So, yes, it could be a reason to leave if it's something that you're like, you know what, I just think that we're too different. I think that I'll never feel appreciated in this relationship. I think you'll never feel appreciated. I don't think you feel seen. I don't think I feel seen. And I just don't think that this is something that either A, I want to work at, or B, that we can work at. You never owe anybody really too much of an explanation as to why you don't want to be anywhere anymore. So there's that. But as far as if that is happening in your relationship right now and you feel like your needs aren't getting met and you feel like you're speaking different languages, that absolutely is something that you can work on, whether through therapy, whether through, there's amazing books out there, there's amazing podcasts. As long as you're two people in a relationship in that kind of scenario that see what's happening and you're two people that are willing to work on it and you're willing to learn the other person's language, or at least be able to understand the other person's language, there's a ton of hope there. It's honestly way more common than you think. Like, it's, of course, sometimes it's easier when you meet somebody where you speak the same exact languages, but I wouldn't say that's as common as it is to meet somebody where you don't speak the same one. So we just got out of the way now the examples of when your needs are not being met and, when maybe it's a good time to walk away and XYZ. But now let's talk about you're in a relationship that maybe it's a mix of the last example. Maybe you are speaking a little bit of like different languages, but maybe you're also just feeling insatiably needy in this relationship. Like it's this itch that you just can't scratch no matter what. Yeah, and your partner maybe is feeling exhausted. Your partner might communicate things to you like it doesn't matter what I do. I feel like you state something that you need, I do it, I show up. It's something that they always feel like the goalpost is moving, that they can never actually score. Like you give a very specific instruction, you give very specific demands. Maybe they're getting exhausted, but they love you and they hear you, so they do it anyway. But like within the same day, the same week, the same month, you're right back to feeling like your needs aren't being met. You're right back to feeling like you need more from the person. I need more from you. I feel like I asked you for dates and you're taking me on dates, but now I feel like you're not complimenting me. And then they start complimenting you and they're taking you on dates and you're like, but I feel like you're not doing this enough. And there's always something, right? So if that sounds like you, this episode is absolutely for you. And that is your first really clear indicator that this is something within you. This is your unmet needs. This is your unmet or untended to wounds. These are your things that have not yet been touched by you. And you're in a relationship, your needs aren't being met. You're not making that up, so to speak, but you're looking in the wrong direction. You're looking to the wrong person to fix them. And this is why you feel like you're in a loop in your relationship where you don't want to leave, you want to stay, but you don't feel happy or you don't feel secure. You're with a good person and you know that they love you and they keep showing up and you're honestly starting to feel frustrated with yourself of, I don't know what to do anymore. This is the time to look within. And this is something I say to my clients all the time. And sometimes it's hard to hear. I think I said it in my last anxious attachment episode, but it's honestly the best news in the world that when you are the source of your own pain, you are also the source of your own healing. And that is a beautiful thing because let me tell you something, it is really hard and heartbreaking when you're in a relationship that is either falling apart or it's not going well or it's slipping through your fingers and you're doing all you can do, but you're not the source of the pain. You're watching somebody else destroy this relationship while, you're feeling helpless because there's nothing you can do, right? To help this person, to fix this person. This person is sabotaging, spiraling out of control. And what's interesting about that take, by the way, is it's very possible, if not likely, that's how your partner feels. that they're starting to feel helpless or hopeless because they're like, I'm doing everything they're asking of me. I'm doing all this, I'm doing all that. I'm saying this the right way that they want me to say it. I'm showing up for this. I'm saying this to them. I'm doing this for them. And they just feel like it's never enough. It's a really upsetting, frustrating feeling that could honestly, for some people, even eventually erode at their own self-esteem, that they feel like maybe they're just not good enough, or maybe they just are, they're not doing a good job. Maybe somebody else can do it for you, then they can't. So going back to what I was saying is that when you are the source of your own pain, you are also the source of your own healing. And this insatiable itch that you have in your relationship, why it's not going away, is because you're looking to the wrong person to scratch it. You keep looking to your partner. And every time that you look to your partner to meet needs or to fix something that is not theirs to fix or is not theirs to meet, you are reaffirming and you are strengthening that neural pathway in your brain to that little version of yourself that you can't meet those needs on your own, that you need to look to somebody else to meet them, that you doing it yourself doesn't feel good enough. It doesn't scratch that itch. I need it to come from them. I need it to come from my partner. I need it to come from this person. I need them to make me feel better. And that goes so far back, especially people that are anxious attachment, which is looking to others to soothe our nervous systems, to make us feel better, to make us feel safe. And why this feels so foreign to you and so difficult to you in your relationship right now is because it is exactly those things. It's different, it's foreign, it's difficult. It's going against your own grain. It's going against your own wiring. Going back to what I was saying before, of every time you look to your partner to fulfill things that are not theirs to fulfill, you are deepening this wound. You are infecting it. You are making it more irritated. You are making it harder to heal. The switch here is coming back to yourself. Like I said, the change is internal. And maybe starting with making a list of what are these itches that feel insatiable in my relationship? What are these things that I keep trying to extract from my partner? What are some feelings? What are some actions or thoughts that I'm trying to get them to get me to feel? I'm trying to look to them to do this for me because I want to feel a certain way. So that's a good place to start, is maybe I'm always asking them to do this, or maybe I want them to make me feel beautiful, or maybe I want them to make me feel happy, or maybe I want them to make me like my body or like myself. Unfortunately, that is not their job. If that is something that you are struggling with, you are never going to get that met from another person. Never. This is your own doing. This is your own task. This is your own journey. And this is absolutely something that you can do within a relationship. This does not necessarily mean that you need to leave your relationship to go and find these things. The majority of healing is done in relationships. It's because a majority of triggering it happens in relationships. So it's really the best opportunities for healing to do these things in real time. Looking for your partner to fulfill anything about you, anything that comes from within you, the ways that you feel about yourself, the way that you think about yourself, you can guarantee off the bat that has nothing to do with your partner. And I'll disclaim, as I said earlier, I'm never talking about unhealthy relationships. I'm not talking about being with somebody who is berating you and disrespecting you and emotionally abusing you and saying, oh, that's not their fault. Unless I state otherwise, I am never talking about those kinds of relationships. I'm talking about relationships where you're with somebody who is healthy, who loves you, who is a safe person, who is a consistent person, they respect you, but you are battling this feeling within yourself. Another thing to take a look at, is this a pattern of yours? Is this something that has shown up for a lot of your life? Is it only showing up in this relationship? I'd argue probably not. That if you were to take a look back, that you probably have struggled with similar feelings like this in either other relationships, possibly even with your career. I see this happen a lot, that people try to extract certain feelings and certain feelings of worthiness, of happiness, of validation from careers, from money, from status, from things where it's never going to come from. It's an inside job. We've all heard the phrase before that happiness is an inside job. The next thing that I want you to do is I want you to figure out, where are you just not taking any kind of accountability or responsibility for your own well-being? Where do you know that you're lacking? Most of my listeners, my clients, my followers are people that they know where they're going wrong. I don't think I've ever had a client come to me who is anxiously attached, as well as asking questions like this of, I can't tell if I'm being needy, or I can't tell if my needs are not being met. I've never had one of those clients ever say to me that the other pillars of their life are extremely fulfilled at the moment, spiritually, creatively, friendships, health wise. I'm telling you right now, I can't think of a single client that I've had this conversation with where all of those needs were being met. If anything, believe it or not, maybe one of them is being met on autopilot, but for the most part, usually none of them are being met. They're not tending to their relationship with God, or they have none. They have no spirituality. They have no creative outlets. They don't even know what they like to do. They have no hobbies. They either don't have any friends because they're just so consumed by their relationship, or they do have friends, but they tend to fall off in their friendships during their relationship because they're just constantly focused on their partner and they're constantly focused on their relationship. They're not working out. They're not going to the gym. They're not doing something for their body. They're not doing something for their health. They're not developing a new skill. They're not working towards something. It is so important that you take a look at those parts of your lives first before you try to make a relationship ending decision of maybe my needs are not being met. I'm telling you, time and time again, I've had this conversation, as well as myself included. I've seen these kinds of attachment styles or these anxieties or these insecurities within relationships completely shift. I don't even mean like they move the needle a little bit. I mean that I have seen people completely transform their attachment styles and their relationships with themselves, not just from doing this like deep inner child work, but from seriously transforming their own personal lives. I've said many times, I'm not just boiling attachment styles down to being bored. I know, obviously, that there is psychological aspects to it, that there's childhood aspects to it, that there's many deep other aspects to it. Those things are typically past factors, right? There's things from our past and from our histories that contribute to our attachment styles now. But the things that keep it so strong and so alive is what you are currently doing, how you are currently interacting with that wiring, like how that is currently showing up in your life. And typically that looks a lot like not having any life outside of your relationship, not tending to any of those pillars that I named, any of those parts in your life. So get a pad and paper or your notes app or whatever, and you're going to make a list of those pillars. You're going to make a creative pillar, a spiritual pillar, a physical health pillar, a new skill pillar, and a friendship pillar. You're going to take a look at those 5 things and you're going to be so fucking honest with yourself of how do those parts of your life look? Where are you showing up for yourself in those parts of your life? Where are you not showing up for yourself? How do you wish you were showing up for yourself in those parts of your life? And that is how you are going to start this process of your needs being met. Because I could be wrong, like I said, this is why I disclaimed earlier on in the episode that yes, there absolutely can be people listening to this episode that are just not in good relationships or not in compatible relationships. The connection's just not there. The compatibility is just not there. But I'd probably guarantee that a majority of my people listening to this don't fall into that category. And they probably fall into the exact category I'm talking about right now, that their life is so empty outside of this relationship. And let me tell you, no shit that you would feel so intensely needy in your relationship and so demanding and so lost and so insecure and insatiably like getting at this itch scratched in the relationship. No shit. Like it's a guarantee if you are not tending to these parts of your life that you will start to feel this way in your relationship. And even people that do tend to these things that I would consider in a more secure division in the attachment styles, myself included, that anytime I start to feel like needier in my relationship or I start to feel like insecurity kind of resurface, I can guarantee that one of those 5 pillars are not being tended to in my life. Guaranteed. Like I could take a step back and be like, where am I falling short right now? Where am I not showing up for myself right now? And I'm telling you, I want to say 10 times out of 10, but I'll say 9 times out of 10, I have seen this literally reverse insecurity within relationships. And forget about reverse insecurity within relationships, but now increase chemistry, increase connection, increase safety, re-enter a new honeymoon phase because you're back to being secure, confident version of yourself, which a lot of my anxiously attached clients are when they first enter a relationship earlier in the dating phase. They're very secure, they're very independent, they're very self-sufficient. They're doing stuff with their friends, they're doing stuff with their career, and then they typically tend to fall apart a little bit more into the relationship. I think a big reason for the honeymoon phase early on in a relationship is not from the lack of information, but it's really from two people still caring so much about being desirable and valuable. And that's not, of course, there comes a point in a relationship where you should let your guard down, right? And you should feel safe to not have to constantly chase each other and you enter more of a zone of certainty, right? Rather than just like constantly having these butterflies and wondering when you're going to see them again, when you're going to talk again. There's that. But a big reason for the honeymoon phase early on in relationships is because we care about being desirable. We care about wanting to maintain attraction. We want to maintain this person's attention. We want to keep them interested. There's no reason for that to ever fall off in a relationship. And let me rephrase that. I don't mean that there's no reason that it will never happen, but what I mean is there's no reason why it should voluntarily stop, is what I should say. There's no reason why we should voluntarily just decide, sometimes subconsciously, but that we just stop tending to those things. We stop tending to our friendships. We stop tending to our careers. We stop tending to our health, our bodies. We stop tending to the things that make us us. And there's no wonder why you start to feel intensely needy and insecure in your relationship when you stop tending to your needs in the first place. Really, if you think about it, if you say it that way, it makes perfect fucking sense that like when you stop tending to your needs, you're gonna feel pretty needy in your relationship, right? 2 + 2 = 4. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. And what I really want to drive home from this episode is not necessarily us deciphering if you're being needy or not, but more so, I really want you to walk away from this episode with the proper tools to start to decipher your own needs. And I really want you to walk away from this episode starting to tend to those things first. So it's not that we'll never decide if you're needy or if your needs aren't being met, but a great way to judge that is if you are tending to all of your needs, if you are tending to all of your life and you feel so fulfilled in every other part of your life and to the best that you can at the moment, right? We're not always going to feel so super fulfilled in life, but if you're tending to your needs, you're tending to your life, you are still making you being you a priority. You're showing up fair and honest in your relationship. You're seeing your partner as a person, not just your person, but a person. You're respecting their boundaries. You're hearing them out. You're seeing their efforts. You're appreciating their efforts. They're working with you. You're working with them. If all of that is going on and at the end of the day, you're still just feeling disconnected, like you're at a dead end, like your needs aren't being met, then we can have another conversation. But something tells me that we're not going to have that conversation. I feel so strongly that if you tend to these things that we discussed in this episode and you take loving yourself and finding yourself and meeting your needs so seriously, I can guarantee that we're not going to have that second conversation because one of two things will happen. We're not going to have that second conversation because the neediness and the needs and all of that will go away. Or you will meet all of these needs. You will feel the fulfillment. You will feel the happiness. You will feel everything that you've been looking to feel. And then maybe you'll decide, you know what? I actually don't think that this is a relationship for me. I feel secure enough in myself and my life and confident enough to make that decision now that, you'll receive clarity at the end of the day is what I'm trying to say. And I will absolutely make another episode speaking more about the psychological side of things, the childhood side of things, the triggers and things of that nature of where we're constantly maybe looking to our partner to fix us and how to really stop that, because I am aware that just romanticizing our life and fulfilling ourselves is not always going to fix that issue. Like I said, it's not just our present, it is also our past. They both absolutely play a role. This episode was more so about the present. And if you guys want to hear a little bit more about how the past plays in to the present, I will absolutely do that for you. But Today, I want you to focus on today. And this is something that you can do immediately. And it's Monday, and I really wanted to offer you immediate help, immediate relief. The childhood stuff, the past stuff, the stuff from our history, our patterns, our behaviors, they take more time, right? They can offer us immediate insight, but they don't always offer us immediate relief. So I was about the immediate relief today. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great Monday. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will talk soon. Thanks for listening.